My parents decided to cancel my 14th birthday party. Why? To accommodate to my spoiled younger brother. Here's exactly what happened. I'm 20 male, and this happened when I was 14. I have a brother that's about 6 years younger than me, and he was extra coddled by my parents for having been diagnosed with high-functioning autism when he was 4. But other than that, he seems very normal. Just unbelievably spoiled, and he used that to get his way a lot. And by a lot, I mean nearly all the time. Anything I had, he had to have also. So that meant we had doubles of almost everything that wasn't shared items. And anything he had that I didn't, he would rub it in my face any way he could. When I was 11, I begged my parents for a 3DS for my 12th birthday. I got one, but then was told to lend it to my brother whenever he wanted, or else I'd have it taken away. Which it was. A lot. When my aunt found out after seeing my parents forcibly take my 3DS out of my hands to give it to my brother on one of her visits, she let loose on them for such blatant favoritism. They returned my 3DS immediately, then blamed me for the situation after my aunt left. But they did not make me give it back to my brother again. Instead, my parents went out a few days later and bought another 3DS as a surprise for my bro. On several of mine and other people's birthdays, my brother made a huge fuss because the party wasn't all about him. Even going so far as outright stating that he was upset because he wasn't getting any gifts, or getting to blow out the candles on the cake. My parents learned the hard way that they could not enable my brother the way they'd have liked at those parties, and were actually kicked out a few times for trying. And because of that, other kids at school stopped inviting him to birthday parties altogether. For me, my birthdays were some of the only days I had that I got to have about me, because otherwise my parents forced me and my life to revolve around my little brother. And the year prior to when this story took place, my parents ended up paying more attention to him than the entire time of my 13th birthday. And even asked me if I'd let my brother blow out my candles because he was upset and pouting. I refused that because I wanted to blow out my own candles. They called me a spoiled brat at first, till my aunt intervened and chastised them on their favoritism yet again, and stated how much she had noticed how my brother gets nearly everything between the two of us, just because he's autistic. My parents got no support from anyone else other than my brother, who was still crying because he wasn't getting to blow out my candles, and because he did not get his way. He tried to outright spit on my cake out of spite, but my awesome aunt thankfully blocked him before he got the chance, then scolded him till he ran to my mom in tears. My parents took a lot of heat from the other adults there, and then promised to never ask me to let my brother blow out my candles again. But they pretty much just went through the motions for the rest of the party. My aunt pretty much took over coordinating everything from that point on. The following year, a couple weeks before my birthday, my parents sat me down and told me that we're still gonna get some gifts and a small cake, but my birthday party was effectively canceled to avoid my brother having another meltdown. I told them I could not believe they were doing this to me, and they just seemed to shrug it off without a care. So, at school over the next week, I told my friends, my teachers, and heck, even my school counselor. All of them were appalled by my parents' lack of consideration or empathy. The vice principal even found out and consoled me, and all of this got back to my parents through social media. My parents ended up grounding and gaslighting me for telling so many people. But that did not stop me from still telling everyone at school that I was grounded for just being upset my birthday was canceled for no good reason. I guess that made it a lot worse because several of my parents' own friends, along with parents of the kids in my school, called them up or sent them Facebook messages basically saying this: "What the hell is wrong with you?" And suddenly, I was ungrounded. I did not get an apology either, but my dad just walked into my room with his arms crossed and told me my grounding was over early, then walked out. That was it. I thought my party was still canceled because nobody said anything about it. And my brother thought it was hilarious and rubbed it in my face that I was not going to get to celebrate. But by the end of the 2 weeks, my parents held a surprise party for me at my favorite restaurant, and then started claiming that this was their intent all along. I knew it wasn't. From what I've seen, everyone was incredibly unhappy with them for what they did, and it showed with any interactions family members had with my parents. So they ended up doing this, quote, surprise party, just to try and save what little of their reputation they had left. But I'm pretty sure they had to pay through the nose that day just to accommodate me. I got dinner with all my friends at my favorite restaurant that had a small arcade, and even got the PlayStation 4 game system I've been jonesing for at the time. I could tell it was all pretty much planned and bought last minute, because my dad had a look about him that my aunt comically described as looking like a moth that's flown out of his wallet. My brother, of course, made a huge fuss that I got that surprise party, but with so many of my friends and their parents there, my mom and dad finally put their foot down on my brother to stop his tantrum when he wanted to push my cake off the table. My brother ended up getting a timeout for the first time since he was a toddler, and my mom had to stay with him to make sure he did not do anything crazy. And he did try several times to run to the cakes or stack of presents. Who knows what he would have done were it not for the fact that at least one adult was always on guard. Even my dad stood guard to keep him away. My mom ended up having to remove my brother and herself from the party entirely, and took my little brother to McDonald's nearby, so he could have some fun in their play area. And I heard later she spent at least an hour trying to get him to come out of the play place tub structure, and he only did so because he had to use the bathroom. Then he tried to make a run for it back to it again. My parents never tried to cancel my birthday again while I still lived with them, though they never again tried as hard or spent as much. For the remaining 4 years I was under that roof, my birthday parties consisted of a local pizza parlor, a cake without even my name written on it, and never again anything as expensive as a gaming system. I don't mean to sound spoiled, but I was a bit disappointed. I never got a cake with my name on it again. My aunt called my parents out on that each year, and each year they claimed they forgot or the cake got decorated. I'm pretty sure that the reason my name was never written on another cake was because my brother always refused to eat pieces of cake that had writing of someone else's name on it. And they could not put his name on my cakes, obviously, or it would have looked very bad for them. But the fact that I still got a day that was just about me, and not my brother, was still fantastic in my book. Especially because just about everything else revolved around him. During each of my remaining birthday parties while still living at home, my brother made a fuss, and my mom took him somewhere else to calm down. I was still required to share my PlayStation with my brother, but it was still mine. And I took it with me when I moved out at 18. Little bro did not like that, and had a huge fit till my parents went out and, of course, bought him one too. When I moved out, they finally had to deal with how they raised my brother so spoiled, because, well, I wasn't there to help them with him anymore. On his recent 14th birthday, he went mental on our parents for not getting him the new PlayStation. He's now currently grounded for I don't know how long after causing hundreds or maybe even thousands of dollars in collateral damage during his rampage. He picked up chairs and just started destroying everything that was in front of him. And my parents just looked mentally checked out when I saw them last. My aunt has also told me they confide in her that they wish they could send my brother to military or boarding school in the future because they just can't handle the monster they created anymore. But there's no way they can afford that. I'd be lying if I said I did not find it ironically funny. This was a crazy story. I think OP, aka the brother, was way more intelligent than his own parents. The way they handled some of the situations was definitely out of hand. Who tries to let their kid blow out someone else's candles? Guys, there's another story that involves this exact same family. It's a different situation of another event. It's coming up next, but first, let me know what you think of this and how the mom and dad could have gone about this differently and did not make such a scene with the brother. Drop your comments down below, subscribe to the channel, and let's check out this other story from the same family. This happened, I think, when my brother was around 7. A neighborhood boy down the street was having his birthday party, and my brother got invited because, well, they were sort of friends. But probably because they knew my parents would bring a gift. And they did. Don't remember what it was though, nor do I really care. My parents dragged me along to this said party, even though I'd have rather stayed home and played video games. I was bored and sitting down almost the entire time, so I got to witness pretty much the whole situation. It started when my brother was caught picking up gifts off the table and shaking them. The mother of the birthday boy told him to stop, and my parents tried to defend my brother and say he was harmless. But the lady knew what my brother was really like, and had my parents move him away from the presents. There were some games that the kids were playing. I don't remember what they were, but I do remember my brother tried to be the center of attention as much as possible. With each game, the birthday boy got first pick or turn on them because, well, it's his birthday. But my brother freaked out because he did not get to be first. And my parents did ask the birthday boy's mother if my brother could be the first pick. The lady not only refused, but told my parents to get my brother under control or we'd ask them to leave. Then came time for the cake. The mother lit the candles for the birthday boy and the adults started singing, "Happy birthday to you." They only got as far as singing the birthday boy's name in the song before my brother burst into tantrum at the table. He grabbed the side of the table and started trying to violently shake it. My parents had to hold my brother back for a moment, and then I saw my mother go up and talk to the mother of the birthday boy again about something. The poor lady looked positively disgusted. I learned later that she asked her to let my brother blow out the candles first, and they could redo it. The lady told my mother that it would be best if we left, and then they went back trying to redo the birthday song. Well, my brother couldn't take it, and he ran to the table and shoved the whole cake right at the birthday boy. I mean, he used his arm to literally clothesline the cake and have it right at the poor kid's face. The whole room was silent for a few seconds, and then a bunch of kids started laughing. The poor birthday boy starts crying, and the adults were all mortified. Except for who else? My parents. My mother just started hugging my brother tightly and acting like a Karen by saying this could have been prevented if they just let my brother blow out the candles first. The mother of the birthday boy was cleaning up chocolate cake off her son and screamed at my parents to get the heck out. The other kids there started crying because it's finally hit them that now there's no cake. My mother started dragging my brother out, but he broke free of her and then pushed over the table with the presents on it. I grabbed him and held him in a headlock till my parents grabbed him up. I apologized profusely to the mother of the birthday boy and said I wasn't on my parents' side in the matter. Yeah, that's right. Little 12-year-old me had to apologize for my own adult parents. My dad yelled to me to get moving or I could walk home. I said, fine, I'd walk home. It was literally a quarter mile down the street. I stayed and helped clean up the mess my brother made. The lady thanked me and said that I was a good egg. My brother was just rotten. Someone went out and got another cake while the birthday boy had to take a shower because he was covered in cake. All the mess was cleaned up and they redid the birthday song. After the party was over, the mother of the birthday boy wrote something out on a piece of paper. It was a handwritten invoice to my parents for the destroyed cake, along with a handwritten threat to call the police as someone there with a camera caught everything. I handed the invoice to my parents and they really did not look happy when they read it. Then they gave me cash and told me to take it back to the lady. So I did. And that was pretty much it. Neither that kid or his family ever associated with my brother or my parents again. But the messed up thing is that at another birthday party months later, the same situation nearly repeated again. My mother asked the parents to let my brother blow out the candles first, gave a bullshit excuse as to why, and they outright refused. My mother started acting like a total Karen. My brother tried to knock down the cake, but I was on guard and intercepted him. Then we were told to leave. It was that after my brother was no longer invited to birthday parties that were not relatives. And then, on my next birthday in the same year, when I turned 13, my parents tried to get me to let my brother blow out my candles. Luckily, my aunt tore them a new one for that. Okay guys, so yet another event where this family is just the center of attention. I found some comments on the original post. I would like to read those now, as I do agree with this opinion. Let me know what you think of these comments. First comment. As someone who's been around children who happen to be autistic, I understand that they don't always understand that not everything is for them. But it is up to the parents to work with them on their social skills. What's overlooked as, quote, oh, the poor little thing doesn't know any better, in a 6-year-old is a potential felony in an adult. Then, the second comment replied to that and said, I'm in no way an expert on autistic children, so please forgive me for my ignorance. But could the parents be using it as an excuse for his behavior? I understand sometimes societal rules aren't well understood, but these parents sound like they weren't even trying to help him and just allowing him to have his way. So let me know in the comments, guys, do you think these parents are enabling his behavior, or do you really think it's from his autism? Drop your thoughts down below. Our next story we're going to look at is the final story of the day. It's an entitled father story. Entitled father tried to get me kicked out of the store for having big breast. Yep, sounds crazy. Let's get right to it. So, the reason why this entitled parent in the story does not go to prison was because I was 18 at the time. But the fact that this happened the way it did still pisses me off. So, when I turned 18, I started working at a call center and often walked around in the city a lot to avoid my toxic mother. Yes, I know what you're thinking, but I was safe and always had a form of self-defense. I was young, but not stupid. Anyways, that year I experienced another growth spurt and went from a C cup to a double D. I was getting a lot of weird looks when in public. As much as I hate to say it, I was pretty young and naive, so I never thought it was because the way my body changed. But I preferred to keep my distance from people. One day, I decided that I was going to Walmart so that I could pick up some yarn for a crochet project I wanted to work on while I was at work. While I was checking out the yarn, I noticed a kid who looked like he was 14 standing at the end of the aisle just watching me. Thanks to my history of getting bullied and beaten up, I immediately grew cautious and started debating if I wanted to get my yarn here or just go to Hobby Lobby across the street. Before I could make a decision, an adult man came up and started leading the son off. So I started to relax and think that I was overreacting. That is until Entitled Dad came back.
Excuse me. Where did you get your implants? They look so real.
Excuse me?
Your implants.
He waves his hand in front of my breast and gets uncomfortably close to me.
Where'd you get them from?
I'm at a loss of words and did not know if he was serious or just being a creep overall. At this moment, the kid came and poked at my right breast, and I instinctively smacked his hand away, not caring if he was a kid. Excuse me, but you really should not do that, especially to a woman. It's not polite and it's considered sexual harassment. Entitled Dad immediately got mad and started screaming at me not to touch his son. He said that it was my fault and that if I did not want attention like this, then I should keep my fun bags put away. I was in tears and looking around for an escape, especially since the more the Entitled Dad yelled at me, the closer he got. He started telling me that there was no way my breasts were real, and that he needed to feel them to know for sure. He even told me I needed to let the entitled son touch them, so he could learn the difference between implants and real breast. Remember the fact that I had my pepper spray in my bag for any occasion where I needed to defend myself. I pulled the can of pepper spray and told them both to step back and get away from me. At this point, an employee turned the corner, having heard us yelling, and saw me holding the pepper spray. He freaked out and called for a manager before coming up and yelling at me, demanding to know what I was doing. Thanks to me being in tears, the Entitled Dad was able to butt in and started lying to the employees that I was seducing his son and pulled my pepper spray out when Entitled Dad tried to come to his son's rescue. The entitled son immediately starts agreeing with his father, and the employees were already saying that he was going to call the police, while the entitled father demanded that me and my big breast get kicked out of the store. Thankfully, at that second, one of my coworkers, a big, burly guy, who often gave me a ride at night after hearing that I took the taxi home because my mother refused to teach me to drive, rounded the corner, leading a manager right to the mess. The manager demanded that everyone shuts up and calms down, and when we had, he turned to me and asked my side of the story. I told them how the entitled dad insisted that I needed to, quote, let them feel my breast to see if they were real, and how I've already explained I wasn't comfortable and did not want their attention. The entitled dad backtracked on his story and tried to defend himself. Here comes the kid saying it was all for educational purposes, and lied that I've agreed beforehand. This is when my coworker got mad and pointed at the camera at the end of the aisle, reminding them that if I would have caught everything. The entitled dad and kid both went silent for a moment before making a break for the exit. The manager took off after them, yelling at them to stop. My coworker berated the employee for threatening me the way he did. Of course, the entitled dad and kid got away, but the employee was fired and I never went back to that establishment by myself per my friend's request. The worst part about this story was when they said entitled father and son got away. That's extremely horrible and toxic behavior, and I cannot believe that he did not go to jail. I was reading the comments and there was one person who posted a similar situation story. So, I'm going to read it. Okay. I used to teach kindergarten at a private daycare. There were a few of my coworkers with bigger breasts. I would consider myself just above average, but nothing huge. There was this one kid who had a thing about touching the teachers he was talking to. Like patting their stomach, rubbing their arms, groping breast. Nothing sexual in nature. Like, he would talk about some imaginative idea while touching teachers like a fidget toy. Well, one coworker of mine loved him to pieces and would let him grope her all the time. She would say he's not doing it sexually, he's just a kid. He doesn't understand and it's not a big deal. Well, One day, he does it to me. I take a step back and hold his hands together in between us. I explain that if he wants to hold my hand or rub my arm while he talks to me, that's fine, but do not touch my chest. He's like, okay, and proceeds to tell me whatever story he wanted to say. Well, coworkers saw me tell him no thanks, and then got on my case about how I shouldn't be sexualizing his actions, and he's just a kid. I explained to her that while yes, he's a kid, not everyone will find it appropriate when he gropes his future teachers. And what kind of habit are we promoting here? Guys, what do you think of that similar situation? Drop your thoughts down below, and remember, subscribe to the channel if you're new, as Mr. Reddito has stories every single day. Have a wonderful night, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.